I always knew I was the supporting character in the movie of my sister Sienna's life. My parents, Brenda and Greg, had spent 26 years making sure of it. If Sienna wanted the last slice of pizza, it was hers. If she wanted to share my birthday party because she felt left out, I was the one who had to blow out my candles while she pouted in the background. But last week, the favoritism hit a level so toxic I'm pretty sure it's irreversible. It started at a family barbecue. The vibe was actually decent for once. My fiancé, Ethan, and I were finally relaxed because our wedding was just a few months away. We've been planning this thing for 3 years, specifically waiting for an opening at the Crystal Grove, a venue that's basically a glass cathedral in the middle of a forest. It's hard to get, expensive, and it was our dream. In the middle of the burgers and potato salad, Sienna stands up, taps her glass, and announces she's pregnant. Everyone goes wild. Hugs, tears, the whole 9 yards. I was genuinely happy for her until she turned to me with this "poor me" look she's perfected since kindergarten. In front of the entire extended family, she asks, "Maya, since I'm pregnant and totally overwhelmed, would you let me take your date and venue at the Grove? It's just so beautiful, and I literally can't even think about planning something from scratch right now." The silence was dead-ass deafening. I looked around, waiting for my mom to say, "Sienna, that's crazy," but instead, my mom just nodded and said, "It really would be the sweetest thing you've ever done for her, Maya." I felt my blood pressure hit the ceiling. I told her firmly, "Sienna, I love you, but absolutely not. We've waited 3 years for this. We've paid the deposits. This is our wedding." Sienna didn't even argue. She just did the golden child pivot. She burst into tears and ran into the house. My nan immediately turned on me, calling me a selfish brat, because Sienna needed the venue more than I did. My mother actually had the nerve to say, "You've already waited 3 years, Maya. Would it really kill you to wait a few more months? When has your sister ever asked you for anything?" I almost laughed. Sienna asks for everything. She breathes, and my parents hand her an oxygen tank. Ethan, who has zero filter when it comes to people disrespecting me, finally snapped. He told the whole table that they were being delusional and that if anyone mentioned the venue again, we were leaving. We ended up walking out 5 minutes later before he could truly go nuclear on them. The fallout was instant. Sienna called me crying, saying I always get what I want, which is a total lie, and that I was ruining her special moment. Then my brother-in-law called. Surprisingly, he apologized. He told me he'd specifically told Sienna not to ask for the venue and that he was disgusted by her behavior. Apparently, their marriage is already on the rocks because of her entitlement, and now she's blaming me for potentially ruining her marriage. My dad sent me 5 texts in a row saying things like, "I hope you're happy, your sister hasn't stopped crying." It was so pathetic it felt like a bad soap opera script. But the peak, main character, move came from my mom. She took it upon herself to call Ethan's parents. She told them it would be best for everyone if Sienna got the venue because she's pregnant. Big mistake. Ethan's dad is a high-key legend. He told my mom to get lost, in much harsher words, and informed her that if they kept playing favorites, they were going to lose their daughter entirely. Now my mom is crying because she thinks my father-in-law is a bully. Ethan's parents ended up driving to our place that night with a massive spread of food and some top-shelf wine. They sat us down and told us not to worry about a single thing. They said they are our safety net and that the wedding is staying exactly where it is. But Sienna wasn't done. She sent me a novel-length text about family values and how I should have her back. I finally hit her with the truth. I told her I was sick of being her doormat. I reminded her of the time she ruined my graduation by wearing a more expensive dress and making her own honor cake so she wouldn't be out of the spotlight. I told her if she wants to get married before the baby comes, she can find a motel that does last-minute ceremonies. She replied with a "Wow, you must love me so much," and blocked me. My wedding planner called me the next morning, absolutely horrified. My mom had called her trying to rebook the venue under Sienna's name, claiming I'd given my permission. Luckily, the planner knew something was fishy and told her that I had to be physically present to sign any changes. We've now informed every vendor, the caterer, the florist, the DJ, that no changes are to be made unless Ethan or I speak the passcode we've set up. We're even hiring security for the wedding day because at this point, I wouldn't put it past my family to try and stage a coup at the altar. Sienna went full nuclear on Facebook the very next day. She started posting these long, rambling statuses about family betrayal and how some people care more about a building than a pregnant woman's mental health. It was high-key clown behavior, but it worked. Her friends, who are basically a bunch of enablers, started flooding my DMs calling me a selfish B-word and saying I was the reason she was depressed. I was deadass getting harassed by people I haven't seen since high school. I ended up just deleting my apps for a while because the toxicity was reaching peak levels, but then it got physical. 2 days ago, I walked out to my car and found it covered in eggs. Not just a few, but like 3 cartons worth. It was a sticky, disgusting mess. Luckily, my neighbor, Mrs. Gable, is the ultimate spy. She's this grumpy old lady who spends all day looking out her window, but she's actually a legend. She caught the whole thing on her porch cam and identified the egger as Sienna's best friend, Chloe. I didn't even hesitate, I called the cops. When the officer showed up, he took the footage, and I made sure to let Chloe know that her loyalty to Sienna was about to cost her a criminal record. My parents hadn't breathed a word to me since Ethan's dad ripped them a new one, but the egg incident finally forced them out of the shadows. They called and asked if we could meet up to talk things out. I was high-key wary, but Ethan told me we should do it at our apartment so we had the home field advantage. When they showed up, my mom looked like she'd been crying for a week straight. For about 10 minutes, I actually felt a tiny bit of guilt, until my dad opened his mouth and ruined it. We started with some awkward small talk before he got straight to the point. He asked why we had cancelled the caterers he was supposed to pay for. Ethan didn't miss a beat. He told my dad we didn't want anything they could hold over our heads. My dad acted all offended, saying he'd never do that, but I reminded him that they were literally trying to steal our wedding venue 2 days ago, so, better safe than sorry, was the new vibe. My mom started in on the disrespect card, but I shut that down quick. I told her that expecting me to hand over a venue I waited 3 years for was the ultimate disrespect. Then my dad hit me with that classic, "It doesn't matter where you get married, it just matters who you're marrying," bull crap. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Exactly, Dad. So why does it matter so much to Sienna? If it doesn't matter where, she can go get married at a courthouse and be just as happy, right?" My dad went red as a tomato, gasping for air like a fish out of water. He had zero comeback for that. My mom started crying again, asking why I hated them so much. It was the ultimate gaslighting move. I looked at her and said, "I could ask you guys the same thing. You've spent my whole life putting her first, and now you're acting like I'm the villain because I'm finally saying no." My dad went on this long-winded rant about family and sacrifice, saying a loving family should do whatever it takes to make each other happy. I just leaned back and asked, "Like how you tried to make me happy on my graduation day? You know, the day Sienna smashed my cake because she wasn't the center of attention." The room went dead silent. They knew I was right, but they weren't ready to admit it. My mom tried to guilt-trip me, saying Sienna was miserable and wouldn't even leave the house because people were judging her. Then my dad tried to excuse her behavior by saying she needed more attention because she's the youngest. It was the same old script I'd heard my entire life. That's when I pulled out the receipts. I opened the Notes app on my phone and showed them a list I'd been working on. It was a massive list of every single time they had put Sienna before me, with dates and specific situations. I read through it, every shared birthday, every stolen moment, every time I had to do her homework or write her job applications because she was too lazy. By the time I was finished, my parents looked horrified. They tried to start explaining away the situations, but I told them the conversation was leading nowhere. I gave them a final ultimatum: they either set up family counseling for all of us and give me a genuine apology, or they were officially uninvited from the wedding. My dad slammed his hands on the table, and they both stormed out. They haven't called since, and honestly, the silence has been kind of peaceful. But then I found out my mom had gone to the next level of main character behavior. My older brother, who moved out of state years ago to get away from the drama, called me to ask what was going on. He told me mom had called him and told him a weird story about how I had offered to give the venue to Sienna before the barbecue, but then I humiliated her by changing my mind. I had to explain the real story, and luckily, my brother believed me instantly. He confessed that he'd moved away specifically because our parents were such jerks about favoring Sienna. He also told me that mom was telling everyone I betrayed the family. But the most shocking part. We called the wedding planner again, and she told me she was horrified. She'd never even spoken to my mother since the day we booked the place. My mom had been lying to everyone about proceeding with the rebooking. The planner assured me that even if my parents showed up with a suitcase full of cash, they couldn't change a single thing without me being there. To be safe, we've now informed every single vendor, the caterer, the florist, the security team, that no one but Ethan and I have the authority to make changes. The vendors were actually super supportive and even offered to give us a discount on security for the big day. It's sad that I have to treat my own wedding like a high-security event, but with a family like mine, you can't be too careful. My sister is still out here playing the victim on social media, but I've blocked all of her flying monkeys. Every time a new message pops up from one of her friends, it just gets deleted. I'm done being the doormat. If she wants to ruin her relationship with me over a building, that's her choice. I'm going to marry my best friend at the venue of my dreams, and if my parents choose to sit it out, that's on them. I'm finally waking up to the fact that cutting out toxic people, even if they're family, is the only way to keep my sanity. Ethan's parents have been our absolute rocks through this whole mess. They've been checking in on us every day, bringing over dinner, and making sure we're okay. They even told us that if my parents don't show up, they'll be more than happy to step in and fill those roles. It's a bitter pill to swallow, realizing that my future in-laws care more about my happiness than my own parents do, but it's also a relief. I'm building a new family now, one that doesn't expect me to set myself on fire just to keep my sister warm. I'm high-key nervous about the wedding day, wondering if Sienna will try to pull a stunt, but with Ethan by my side and a security team at the door, I know we're going to be okay. The venue war might be over, but the road to healing is just beginning. I'm done waiting for my parents to change. I'm moving forward, with or without them. After I officially blocked my parents and changed my number, the silence was dead-ass loud. It was supposed to be the happiest time of my life, but instead, it felt like I was living in a bunker. My parents were calling me from random relatives' phones, and Sienna's flying monkeys were still trying to find ways to tell me I was the reason she was failing and depressed. I eventually just deleted my Instagram and Facebook because the toxicity was high-key draining my soul. I had to cut off almost every family member who took their side, which sucked, but Ethan and his parents were my absolute rocks. My older brother even flew in early to help me stay sane, and honestly, having people who actually respect your boundaries made all the difference. A few days before the wedding, my nan showed up at my door. She looked smaller and older than I remembered, and she was basically begging me to let her come. We had a long, heavy talk. She ended up apologizing for calling me selfish at the barbecue, though I could tell she still didn't quite get why the venue was such a big deal. She kept saying, it's just a building, but she finally admitted she didn't want to lose me over Sienna's drama. We hugged it out, and I told her she could come, but our relationship definitely wasn't back to normal. Trust is hard to rebuild when someone tells you that your wedding is less important than your sister's tantrum. The night before the big day, we had a low-key bachelor and bachelorette party combo. No crazy clubs, just us and our real friends cooking until dawn and laughing until our ribs hurt. Ethan even spent the night perfecting this massive, 3-layered lemon cake because he wanted everything to be perfect. It felt like the first time I could actually breathe without waiting for a Hulk smash moment from my sister. Then, the wedding day finally arrived. The morning was surprisingly chill and relaxing. The Crystal Grove looked like a straight-up dream, the sun was hitting the glass walls, and the forest vibe was pure magic. We were out on the lawn taking first-look pictures with my bridesmaids when I saw a car I recognized peeling into the parking lot. My heart dead-ass dropped into my stomach. It was Sienna. One of my friends bolted toward the venue to grab the security team we'd hired, but Sienna was already out of the car and screaming at the top of her lungs. She looked totally possessed, her hair a mess and her face red from crying. She started screaming obscenities, calling me a filthy B-word, and screaming that I was the reason her fiancé had finally dumped her. Apparently, after the barbecue and the Facebook drama, he'd realized she was a total nightmare and ended their engagement. She was blaming me for her entire life falling apart when, in reality, she'd done every single bit of it to herself. The venue has this high-tech sprinkler system that runs in the early morning, so the flower beds near the entrance were still a bit muddy. The next thing happened so fast I almost missed it. Sienna bent down, grabbed a huge handful of wet dirt and mulch, and was winding up to hurl it at my white dress. I froze, thinking my wedding was officially ruined, but my maid of honor, who is a total savage, didn't hesitate. She sprinted towards Sienna and gave her a firm shove just as she was about to throw. Sienna lost her balance and landed right on her backside in the middle of a bed of damp petunias. The security guards arrived seconds later and hauled her away while she was still kicking and screaming like a toddler. I didn't even want to file a police report right then because I refused to let her be the center of attention for one more second. I just wanted her gone. I used that scene as ammunition to file for a permanent restraining order the very next morning, but for the rest of the wedding day, I put her out of my mind. The rest of the day was spectacular. It was like the universe decided I'd paid my dues in drama and gave me a perfect sunset in return. My older brother walked me down the aisle, and we both started ugly crying before we even reached the altar. When I looked at Ethan, I realized that every text, every egged car, and every screaming match was worth it just to be standing there with him. Our vows were so emotional that even the security guards were wiping their eyes. The reception was high-key the best party I've ever been to. Ethan and his groomsmen had practiced this hilarious choreography to a Taylor Swift song, and the speeches were so funny they could have been a stand-up comedy special. I missed my parents, obviously. It's hard not to feel that sting on your wedding day, but looking around the room at the people who actually showed up for me, I realized I hadn't lost a family. I just traded a toxic one for a group of people who actually give a damn about my happiness. When we got back from our honeymoon, I decided I was done with the small-town drama. I loved my friends, but I needed a clean break from the constant threat of a Sienna sighting at the grocery store. I applied for a job at a university in a much bigger city 3 hours away, and I got it. Ethan and I are currently in the middle of packing up our lives and moving into a gorgeous new place where nobody knows our names or our family history. But here's the most cliché part of the whole story: I'm pregnant. It's a total honeymoon baby, and honestly, the irony isn't lost on me. Sienna tried to use her pregnancy to hijack my life, and now I'm the one moving forward with a happy marriage and a baby on the way while she's stuck back in our hometown. I've heard through the grapevine that things are pretty bleak back at my parents' house. Sienna moved back into her old room and refused to get a job, claiming her depression over the breakup and that the venue betrayal is too much to handle. My nan told me the last time she saw my parents, they looked absolutely exhausted. Sienna is apparently treating them like personal servants, throwing tantrums if her laundry isn't done or if they don't buy her exactly what she wants. I guess their golden child parenting style finally caught up with them. They wanted to build a queen, but they ended up with a giant baby who won't leave the nest. I'm really happy right now. It hurts to lose your parents and your sister, but at the end of the day, cutting out toxic people was the best thing I ever did for my future. I'm starting a new chapter in a new city with my best friend and our own little family. I've learned that family isn't about blood or sharing a last name, it's about who stays by your side when the mud starts flying. I'm done being a doormat, and I'm dead-ass excited to finally be the main character of my own life.